Seek good and not evil, so that you may live, and the Lord will be with you.
Glory. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. The disciples of John came to Jesus, saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "The wedding guests cannot mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them, can they? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, Lord Jesus Christ.
We're reading from Matthew chapter 9. And the disciples of John the Baptist came to ask Jesus about fasting. Let's recall that in Matthew chapter 6, which was the gospel reading for Ash Wednesday, Jesus told his disciples to pray, to give alms, and to fast, but to do it in secret. He told us that when we pray, when we give alms, and when we fast, is to be done in secret. That is in Matthew chapter 6. And here in Matthew chapter 9, the disciples of Jesus came and asked Jesus. The disciples of John the Baptist came to ask Jesus, "We fast, the Pharisees fast, and why do your disciples not fast?" The response of Jesus teaches us three things. The first thing it teaches us is that the ministry of Jesus is not a continuation of the ministry of John the Baptist. Even though John the Baptist foretold the coming of Jesus, John the Baptist baptized Jesus, but Jesus did not come to continue the teachings of John the Baptist. Also, Jesus did not come to approve and continue the religiosity of the Pharisees. Now, how do we understand the response of Jesus? The reason why the Pharisees fasted, they fasted twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. And everybody was doing it, including John the Baptist and the disciples of John the Baptist. The reason why they were fasting was for God to hasten the coming of the Messiah. That's the reason why they were fasting. Because God made a promise that he was going to send the Messiah to come. And so the Pharisees were fasting twice a week, asking God to hasten the coming of the Messiah. And they were also fasting as external piety for people to see that they were really praying for God to send this Messiah. And so when the disciples of John came to ask Jesus, "Look, we are fasting. The Pharisees too are fasting, but your disciples are not fasting." So Jesus said to them, "The bridegroom is here. The person we are expecting, the Messiah that we are expecting, is here." And so he says, "The wedding guests cannot mourn while the bridegroom is present. And it says the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. And in our spirituality as Catholics, every Friday is miniature Good Friday. What that means is that every Friday, especially the Fridays of Lent, we are called to fast in some way. We are called to deny ourselves of something because of what happened on Good Friday, when the bridegroom was taken away from us. On Good Friday, which is a day of fasting, the teaching of the church says all of us should try and do some kind of fasting. Now, I will tell us how the early Christians, especially up till the medieval ages, in the Middle Ages, how they did it. They connected fasting with almsgiving, because when we fast, it creates excesses that we can give as almsgiving. And so the spiritual interpretation of how they observe the connection of fasting with the Holy Eucharist is they believe and they practiced it. They were called the Desert Fathers. The Middle Ages was a high point of the Christian life. They will fast and create excesses that they give away. And then the understanding is they feed the poor, and then they come to the Eucharist for Jesus to feed them. And that spirituality subsists today. That kind of spirituality is still encouraged today. It used to be that before Pope Pius, who changed the law, we were asked to fast 24 hours before Holy Communion. And then that law was reduced to 1 hour. And that is often the reason why the Mass sort of lasts for 1 hour, to allow us to really hunger for Christ, who gave up his life for us. It is in recognition of what he did on Good Friday. It's called the ultimate sacrifice of Christ. Every time we fast, we have to link it with what happened on the cross, the passion, the suffering, and the death of Jesus. It is an acknowledgement of what he did. And that is exactly what Jesus taught here. He says the days will come, not one day. He says the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away. And from that day, my disciples will fast. So we are not fasting like the people of the Old Testament who were fasting for God to hasten the coming of the Messiah. The Messiah has come, and when we Christians fast, it is connected to Christ, what Christ did. And when we tie it to prayer, when we because he died on the cross for redemption, to save us. So when we are praying for a cause, we are also tying that situation to the death of Christ, and we're asking him to redeem, to save that situation that we're fasting about. And it is prayer. It is not just what is called a weight loss program. It's not a weight loss program. It is not also a saving device, a saving program where we save what we should have eaten or what we should have spent and we save it for later. What the exercise that is created by denying ourselves is offered as prayer. It's an offering, and that's what's called alms giving. So Jesus clarifies for us today to understand the reason why we fast. We fast. It's new. That teaching is new. It was not in the Old Testament. It's a New Testament teaching that we fast because Jesus is taken away from us. And we acknowledge it and we deny ourselves so that we can hunger and recognize that whole sacrifice that Jesus made for us.